Another nerve-wracking game if you're a Bulls fan, but the Bulls come away with a much needed win on the road in Salt Lake, in a game in which the first half it looked like the Bulls were going to come out flat, giving up a ton of threes to the Jazz. Granted, you had to think at some point they were going to start, missing some of their outside shots, which indeed they did in the second half as the Jazz went cold from behind the arc, and what looked like a revenge game from Lauri Markkanen against his former team, where he could not miss in the first half, scoring 24 points and looked like he was going to bust out for 40 plus with the way he was playing. Kind of came back down to earth in the second half, although still an incredible game for Markkanen. 32 points and 12 for 18 shooting. Had 7 threes in the game to go along with 9 rebounds, but couldn't quite get his team over the edge to get a win. And as great and surprising as the Jazz were to start out the season, they were the #1 seed in the East and the West, beating some of the best teams in the league in a season in which everyone assumed they would be the front runners to land that #1 pick in next year's draft. As fun as that was, you kind of knew that they would be coming back down to earth at some point, and you've been seeing it most recently. This is now their 5th straight loss. They're only 1 game above 500 now, falling into that play-in spot in the West. And I said in my weekly preview video, this was a game where the Bulls needed to take advantage of a team that is going through that slump, that while yes, had this great start, the Bulls are still a better team than them on paper. And of course, I also said feed Vucevic, which in the first half the Bulls did, not so much in the second half. I still would prefer to see Vucevic demanding the ball more in the post, which he was. And there were even times where the Bulls were giving it to him, but he would kick it back out. But seeing him go 0 for 4 tonight from 3 and scoring most of his points in the paint when he's going up against Olynyk, you have to exploit that. It's going to be the same for the game against the Warriors as well, where they like to play small ball, and their only true center is Kevon Looney, who is not on the same level as Vucevic is. Vucevic still finished the game with a double-double, putting up 16 and 10, 8 for 17 from the floor. The other piece I mentioned was getting Drummond some good playing time, exploiting that poor matchup as well, whether it be against Walker Kessler or Olynyk. And in 14 minutes, Drummond feasted, putting up 10 points and 10 rebounds. Both him and Vucevic were very active on the offensive glass. The Bulls out-rebounded the Jazz 50-45 in large part due to their 2 big men. The other great pieces from this game was seeing Coby be that scorer off the bench. Again, this is what everyone wants to see from Coby, being that scoring spark in the second unit. He does it occasionally. We just need to see him do it consistently every single night. Another really clutch 3 from Coby tonight that more or less sealed the game with less than a minute to go, or less than a minute and a half to go. The Jazz did make things a little interesting in the final minute and a half, but once the Bulls took that double-digit lead with less than 4 minutes to go in the game, they never looked back, even though the Jazz definitely made us all sweat a bit. But for Coby, 15 points, 6 for 9 from the floor, 3 for 5 from 3. Dragic, in limited minutes that he played, was actually great, setting up some nice plays for Drummond. I absolutely love the Dragic-Drummond combo in the pick and roll. It's a thing of beauty. Both DeMar and Zach had good games. I wouldn't say they were incredible by any means, as both didn't shoot the ball well, especially in the first half. DeMar really took over in the second half, as he does, finished the game with 26 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds, shooting 9 for 20. One thing I said in the live chat at the end of the game, when you saw DeMar starting to do his thing, bringing the ball up the court, drawing up an ISO play to get to his spot, doing a spin move to get to the basket at times, he was hitting those shots. It was working. You can't get mad when it's working when he's knocking down the shots. But what I said in the chat was, as much as this is great to have a guy like DeMar who can just take over the game, and while it works sometimes to have that happen, it's not sustainable for the long term. You have to keep the ball moving, you have to get other guys involved, and keep the defenses guessing, because at this point, teams by now across the league, in a close game going up against the Bulls, they know it's ISO DeMar time, and if you can stop that, you can stop the Bulls. You need the offense to be more dynamic, more random, and you know what? DeMar did start switching things up and passing the ball on some of those final possessions, and it worked. You can't just keep having DeMar hold the ball in his hands with other guys standing around at the end of every close game. You're not going to win games consistently like that. As for Zach tonight, a decent game. He put up 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists, so he was getting it done in other areas even outside of scoring, but didn't shoot the ball well. 7 for 20, 1 for 6 from 3. And I don't know how many times in a close game situation where the Bulls have led, they have the lead in the final 2 to 3 minutes, and he takes a jumper in transition with 18 seconds left on the shot clock. He used to do this kind of thing all the time a couple seasons ago before the Bulls revamped the roster. It was my first season actually running the channel, covering the Bulls, and I always was in disbelief when I would see Zach do this. How do you not have the court awareness to just kill the clock? Use the whole shot clock. set up a play, even if it means going ISO and taking a contested shot. At least use up the clock when you have a solid lead. And Zach kind of stopped doing this for the most part more recently, although it's probably because the ball is now in DeMar's hands in those late game situations. But seeing it tonight at the end of the game against the Jazz, like, luckily the Bulls had a fairly comfortable lead that it didn't impact the game, but sheesh, I wanted to pull my hair out when the Bulls were in control and all they had to do was kill as much clock as possible. Anyway, I feel like I've been ragging on Zach Lavine a lot lately. It's just because I have high expectations of him, especially now that he got his max contract, and then I still see him doing these boneheaded things we used to see him do a couple seasons ago. Io and Patrick were pretty quiet tonight, although Io came out in the first quarter on a mission, scoring most of the points for the Bulls in those beginning minutes where I thought he was going to have a big game, but actually where Io excelled tonight, which I also talked about in my preview video, I need him to be Oliver Clarkson. I don't care about his offense, and I know he wasn't on Clarkson all night, but when he was, Clarkson couldn't get anything going. Jordan Clarkson had one of his worst games of the season, putting up 8 points on 3 for 15 shooting, 1 for 8 from 3. He had 9 assists though, but that was a big difference maker for the Bulls in limiting Clarkson from going off in this one. Also, man, looking at the box score, the Bulls went 6 for 22 from 3. Yikes. Better not see that kind of performance from deep when they come play the Warriors. I need to see a win in that game that I will be in attendance at, but I shouldn't get ahead of myself. The Bulls have the Suns on Wednesday, which is going to be a big test for them. I'll have a live group chat for the game, and as always, let me know what you guys thought of the game tonight in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.